All right, there we go. Now that we have successfully hatched business schemes, we talked about T-Rex, benching, T-shirts, and just about everything else imaginable, we can start the podcast and officially get going here. So today we're going to talk about why sequencing your training, or how you sequence your training. Why is that so important? This is something that came up. It was either like an email or Instagram question, and it gets into the law of diminishing returns, right? Which we can obviously get into. And then what I would love to eventually talk about here is this concept of the seasons of lifting, because I think that you can just take the calendar year and the 4 seasons and use those 4 seasons to very easily align and sequence your training over the course of a calendar year, and then just rinse, wash, and repeat that thing. And I think that for 99% of people, if you follow that scheme and plan, you will crush and do incredibly well, right? But let's maybe first start with some definitions here. And we talk about sequencing training. What we're really talking about is this concept of periodization. There are many different schemes. I've always liked block periodization. Personally, my favorite. I think it makes the most sense from a just like science, physiology, adaptation standpoint. But you can think of it like Lego blocks. And basically what you're doing is you're saying this Lego block is going to be dedicated to trying to improve this type of fitness quality, right? And so you're going to focus on developing this fitness quality, but then maintaining the other ones while this one is in development mode. Because I can't make everything better at the same time. But if you stack the Lego blocks together in the right order, then you can basically develop this quality, maintain these other qualities, and then go to the next Lego block and now develop a new quality and maintain the other ones. And we get this stair-step increase in strength or hypertrophy, power, endurance, etc. over time, right? And let me first hear a punt and go to you guys. Anything that you would like to add on that quick synopsis of sequencing and just kind of an idea of what it is for people listening?
I would maybe just restate that, because I think you covered everything. It's just I'm changing the focus of my training while trying not to lose what I've already gained.
Boom. That's it.
I like it. Thank you. I should just have one guy on the podcast who just sits there the whole time, just goes, nice. Boom. Yep. He just kind of comes in with one-liners for us to really make us feel good.
I'm the subtle hype man.
The subtle hype.
I've been thinking about getting one of those sound pads where I just hit the button and then it could be Kieran's voice.
Love it.
He could also contribute, and then he could also say that to himself. That'd be great.
Be my own hype man.
Yeah, something like that.
We've got sound effects over here. Like we got a drum joke.
Why haven't we been using this? This is fantastic.
We need to remember that for liqueur.
I was going to say, we're missing the one guy we really need here for the drum joke is gone, because he would have lots of those moments. Oh, that's good. Well, we have a drum roll. Not as good. What is it? Fancy transition.
Oh, transition. There we go. Yeah.
Nice. I'm just gonna start throwing these in. Anytime a good point is made. You remember the TV show? What was the show? It may still be on ESPN. I just don't watch ESPN anymore. But growing up around, was it Around the Horn?
Yes. Yep.
Yo, I loved that show.
That
I would
was
always
great.
watch that in the afternoons.
Because of the sound and the mute. That's the whole thing.
Yep. You had a mute, you had the sound, the clap thing. I'm like, we could totally just recreate that here.
The arbitrary point system.
Totally random point system. This dude has a joystick, and he's like, points for you. Points for you. But to bring this back to the concept of sequencing your training, the reason that it's so important, and I think the reason people run into problems is this, and the jux of the message in question I got, it was something along the lines of, James, I was making really good progress for the last, month and a half. And now it seems like things have really plateaued and I'm not moving anymore. I'm not getting results any longer. Right. And so that kind of checks out from a timeline standpoint. And so what we're talking about here is this concept of the law of diminishing returns. Okay, and if you think of a fish hook and you turn that fish hook upside down, that's kind of getting us to the shape of the graph that we're talking about. Okay, and so with the law of diminishing returns, you have a vertical portion of the graph to start, and then it starts to flatten out, and you get on a flat portion of the curve. So when you see a new block of training, a new phase of training, whatever language vernacular people choose to use, we're going to be more in that vertical phase of this line, right? It's a new stimulus. There's lots of reason for your body to start adapting to this new stimulus that it's seeing. As it continues to see the same stimulus over and over and over and over again over time, that vertical line starts to flatten out and we get on the flat part of the curve. And now we're no longer making progress. We have plateaued. The results are not there. And so what you want to do, like in a perfect world, hypothetical whiteboard world scenario, if you were to go draw these lines on a whiteboard, they would essentially come together with how you sequence your training of like, I have a fish hook, and as soon as I get on the flat part of the curve, I change it up, and now I'm on a new fish hook. And then I get to the flat part of the curve, and now I'm on a new fish hook. And so you get this rounded out stair-step fashion that increases over time, right? Let me throw that back to you guys again. Anything additional that you would like to add?
If the listener isn't watching this on YouTube, they should, because this is helpful, or wherever the video is available.
Yeah, because it's basically I'm trying to think what the
it's
name
a
of
stair
that curve
step,
is.
just like what you're. I mean, it's a rounded stairs where you're coming up, and if you do the same thing that you've done forever, you can't expect any changes, right? If you stop doing that, you can expect backward changes. But if you change it up, you might get more forward changes. And then I just want to reiterate your point about diminishing returns. I think a lot of people get stuck saying, I'm not making progress anymore because they're no longer making newbie gains. And so their progress is now really detailed. And part of that is what jades me about being a trainer is like, once you're pretty trained, I'm not impacting you a whole lot. But it doesn't mean you're not making progress. And, there is something to be said about not regressing as well. And I don't know that many listeners to Rebel are, it's not like they're trying not to die. It's more that they want to get better. But for me, I don't know. I kind of find that motivating. Like, I just want to stay fitter, at least this fit for the rest of my life,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think to your point about like just changing things up to continue the progress or like to get the next stimulus, right, to go up the staircase is like some people might think that could potentially mean throwing the baby out with the bathwater and switching the phase entirely and like doing everything new. And I think that I really like the dimmer switch analogy. Like I'm sure we'll talk about like, vertical integration or whatever, but it might just mean turning the dimmer switch down on one part of your training, turning it up a little higher on another part of your training. It's usually a lot less of a dramatic change than people think that they need to kind of get to the next step up that hill.
Yeah, this is not P90X muscle confusion. Like this isn't CrossFit where like it's going to be a different workout every single day, right? Like there's a concept here of you have microcycles, we have macrocycles, we have mesocycles. Again, this comes back to periodization and long-term planning and training, which is a far more complicated and difficult thing to pull off if you don't do it all the time and you're not a coach that has a lot of experience in this realm. This is where I think people struggle, right? Like they pull programs off the internet and they get those either initial newbie gains or it's a new program and a new stimulus, so they start to make progress. But then it's that long-term progress of making progress month by month by month where they start to really peter out. I think one of the places that we do a really good job is if you look at our clients that are with us for a year, their rate of progress month by month is insane. And it doesn't really slow down because I think we do a really good job in this realm of sequencing training appropriately for folks and, changing the stimulus at appropriate times. And again, to Kieran's point here, this is not just like totally fucking throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's just making small adjustments and tweaks to training to make sure that the stimulus is enough for you to continue to move forward. Okay. An analogy in this realm that may be useful for people is imagine when you first hear a new song that you really like. That song is so awesome and you play it on repeat right? I've definitely done this. Everyone probably has. It just sits on repeat in your headphones, and it continues to be awesome, and it continues to be awesome. And then after about a week or 2 weeks, or however much time it is, at some point in time, that new flashy song stops being awesome because you've heard it 200 times, and it is no longer a pleasant experience for your brain. It's no longer novel. And it's the same story here when we talk about training and sequencing your training, right? It's the body gets bored. It's hearing the same song over and over again. We need to give it a new song, right? And so if we want to zoom out and think about conceptually, okay, well, James, that sounds great. How do we actually do this? What does this look like in the real world? The easiest way that I have found to explain this to people and teach it to people without having to try to teach them complex, programming and periodization schemes, it's just to say, hey, we're going to use the seasons of lifting to align your training in a way that you can tap into this effect, and that we have this really nice rounded out staircase effect so you continue to make progress over time, and we don't ever just plateau for, lengthy periods of time. And the seasons of lifting are very simple. They're very straightforward. You're just going to align yourself with the 4 seasons that are already going to be happening. It's the calendar year, right? And so the things that I really like about this, 1, it's super simple. 2, there's a natural rhythm to the weather anyways. So when it's going to be really cold outside in the winter, that's probably not a great time for us to try to plan on maximizing speed and power for you, because you can't go outside anyways, right? And the other nice part about aligning it this way is that it means that you're going to it breaks the year down into 4 pretty much 12-ish week chunks, ballpark, right? Which is right around the amount of time that you probably want to spend in a particular training phase focusing on a particular quality. 12 weeks tends to be like a really nice rounded out number for folks, right? And so it aligns on all of those factors for us quite easily. And so the way that I like to have it flow is quite simple. We're going into fall right now, which is my favorite time, and I love to be outside in the fall. The weather is just perfection. So in the fall is when I like to go, sweet, like let's chase some speed and power stuff. It's beautiful outside. Football's on TV. Everyone's feeling a little bit of that extra, wanting to be athletic and sprint and jump and do all those fun things. Fall's a great time to do that because the weather really suits to you being outside. In the winter, we're going to go with work capacity. You're going to be inside. You're forced to be inside because it's probably snowy and cold and you don't want to be outside. So you're going to go work capacity in the winter. From a work capacity phase, we'll go into a hypertrophy phase, right? We'll hit hypertrophy in that springtime. Side bonus here, you're hitting hypertrophy in spring, so by the time summer rolls around, you're going to feel really good about what's going on with your physique when you go to the beach or the pool, whatever it is, what everybody talks about wanting to look better naked, right? In the summer, we're going to run a strength cycle. We're going to improve your ability to generate force. And now we're back to the fall again, where we're going to take that improved force generation ability and teach you how to generate that force faster, focusing on speed and power. And then we can rinse, wash, repeat that entire process. It's winter. Let's focus more on work capacity, your ability to handle more training load and volume. Then we go into hypertrophy, so we're going to get bigger muscles. And then we're going to go into the summer. We're going to teach those muscles to generate more force. And then we go into the fall. We're going to teach you how to take that massive force pool you have, and now we're going to tap into it faster, and you're going to improve speed and power. Rinse, wash, and repeat. That's generally, from an organization standpoint, for 99% of folks, I think would work incredibly well. Do you guys have any accessory thoughts, questions, input, or feedback on that model?
Not particularly. I think it's a good model, and I like that it coincides with, the practicality of life, the logistics of living in a place where weather changes, I don't think about that a lot because most of my clients are in Northern California and the weather doesn't change there. But I think that's a really good way to do it. I still like periodizing their training. The question that I would maybe follow up with, well, Kieran, do you have anything to add on that?
No, I think to your point, it makes a little more sense for like me and like the athletes and clients up here. Like we'll get all 4 seasons in the Northeast.
Yeah.
But I think you can even get like a little more nuance for somebody who's maybe like, I'm just an athlete. Like I really just want to, the other stuff is important, but I just really want to stay as athletic as possible, where it's like, all right, to your point, like in the winter, I'm not getting outside around here. But, you know, maybe a great time. A lot of people are playing rec basketball. You're prioritizing your jumping ability or whatever it is in the winter, and then take that out through the whole year, where it's like summer and fall is great. I have access to tracks because the schools are out and I can actually get on without, you know, all the kids and teachers and stuff. And that's a great time to prioritize your linear speed. And then, you know, maybe it's football season and you start working on change of direction stuff. So like you could take that concept and apply it to any nuance that you want dependent upon your goals, right? So I think that makes a lot of sense with that stuff as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think for the really athlete-focused people in the crowd, that makes a lot of sense. Like in the winter, if you want to focus more on your jumping, that pliability, you can probably do throws too, depending on how big the space is. And then as the weather gets nice, we transition out to a track and really focus more on linear speed or change of direction or curve linear runs or whatever it's going to be, right? So yeah, I do think from a conceptual standpoint, it lends itself to lots of different types of outcomes. Kind of take it and mold it to whatever your specific desires as an athlete are.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's kind of like two things that I was thinking of. One is if you switch focus, for me, it's like when I do speed and power, I feel a little lighter, but I don't feel fast, you know? And so when I'm doing that training, sometimes I think I'm not getting anything done. Another example, I was doing calisthenics type stuff for about 3 months just to kind of see if we could, me and my clients, if we could hold these positions, learn how to balance ourselves on our hands, stuff like that. And all of that was good. Like we did that. But I also felt fat and lazy because I didn't get any metabolic training out of it. And so I was like, this is a stupid program. Ask all my clients. I told them all, this is a stupid program. And I think it's easy to train something that, hey, maybe you need to train right now. But if your body's not that good at it, and you don't get much benefit out of it, like you don't get that clear newbie gain, like, oh my God, now I can squat 200 more pounds, then you start to think, I'm not even training very hard, or I'm regressing, or I've stopped making progress. And it's just not the case. You just have to be really specific, a little less negative, and maybe more objective about tracking your progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe let me give an example here when I say work capacity. The flow in my mind kind of starts in the winter. I like thinking work capacity to hypertrophy to strength to power. That basic rhythm makes a lot of sense physiologically to me. And so it's like I can have a squat and I can make a squat about work capacity. I can make that squat about hypertrophy. I can make that squat about strength, or I can make it about power simply by manipulating sets and reps and loading. Right? Like this isn't that complex. This is not rocket science. Work capacity is definitely going to be higher rep, shorter rep stuff. Sorry, higher rep, shorter rest type activity. I really like time sets for that sort of thing. Right? Give them a shot clock, like 20 to 30 seconds, and we're going. Right? Hypertrophy, I mean, bread and butter, we're talking probably 8 to 12 reps, maybe 10 to 15 reps. Super simple. Strength, we're dropping that down. We're probably living more in that 4 to 6 rep range. Power, now we care about velocity, right? And there are many different ways you can do this. Like maybe you're going to go dynamic effort method straight wet, like old school West Side stuff. Maybe you have a VBT device and we can actually do legit VBT training with you where we're hitting certain bar speeds based off of like how you test into that number, right? But generally speaking, for most people, that's going to be having something on the bar that's probably between like 60 to 75% of a max, and you're doing it for doubles and triples, and you get plenty of rest, and we're kind of question mark setting your sets basically until bar speed drops off. Something along those lines, right? It's a pretty simple, easy model for you to like progress and continue to work through. And it's just, I just think people make things way more complicated than they need to be in this realm.
So I totally agree, and now I want to complicate things for the people still listening and feel like we haven't talked about them. So the periodization becomes more important the more advanced you get. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's like the thing with training, right? That's such a real kick in the nuts is the better you get and the stronger you get, the harder you have to work to continue to make any progress whatsoever.
To make less progress, yeah.
It never gets easier. It never gets easier, ever. Incremental
Absolutely.
gains.
And so one of the principles of training is this reversibility. So if I stop doing everything, I will lose everything. If I stop doing one particular fitness quality, I will start losing other things, right? Like you can take a week off and you're not going to totally regress, but if you took a year off, you would regress a lot. And hey, your body might have some of that muscle memory or whatever, and you might be able to get it back pretty quick in a year later. Like, life just happens, right? Or you get an injury, that's another one, or a surgery, something like that. My question is about residuals of training. So residuals in periodization talk these are the fitness qualities that I'm not training. How long will they last? That's kind of what the definition is to me. Should we clean that up?
I think it's a pretty apt description.
Okay.
It's basically saying, if you think of this, start the quality, if you have an XY axis and we're on a graph, and you start that quality at, say, 100%, the question is, how fast does that line drop from 100?
Yeah.
Right, that's the basic idea. How long does this fitness quality hold on without me really training or touching it? And that's a very important one.
For examples like power stuff, it's pretty quick, like on
Super
the scale
fast.
of less than a week. For strength stuff, it takes a little bit longer. For hypertrophy, it takes a little bit longer, stuff like that. My question for you guys is, if I am periodizing things, I'm changing the focus of my training, do you accept that some of these other residuals, some of these other fitness qualities will have to regress during the other seasons? Or do you feel like you're able to keep them?
Kieran, you want to lead?
Yeah. I feel like the majority of athletes and clients I work with at like Rebel and, like the school and stuff, I feel like no one is at a high enough athletic level or training age where I can't continue to push multiple qualities. That's not to say, I think to your point, I think once you get to like those highly specialized demographics, like a super high level athlete or, a really specific like strength sport athlete or something, I feel like you have to live with that more. And I could be off, but I just feel like that I'm able to continue to train enough qualities, even on like a micro dose level, right? Like 3 sets of high quality sprints 2 to 3 days a week is enough to keep guys feeling good and fast and healthy, and where they don't see a ton of drop off throughout the training cycle. So I just think I think I said this on another podcast, but like that diamond approach, I feel like most people for me are at the top where we're just teaching stuff, or in the middle where it's like a big broad, we could start to incorporate more variability and variety and stuff. So I think if you were in the bottom part of the diamond approach where you have somebody specialized, for me, that would be a bigger issue, but that's not who I'm with most of the time.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that an important distinction to make here is that the amount of work required to maintain a quality is substantially less than the amount of work required to develop a quality. And so I think that it is fairly simple to maintain a quality like speed and power. I think that it will probably drop off a little bit, but I think the amount of drop off is going to be quite insignificant, and I can get it back really fast and improve upon it. And so I think that's a really important distinction people need to keep in mind here. Developing a quality versus maintaining a quality are two very different things. Like, I can maintain speed and power by just giving you a few sets of jumps, a few sets of throws, or maybe a few sets of like sprint work throughout the week. It's going to be such a low volume and such a low stressor. It's not going to impact the rest of our training, but it's enough of a touch point for you that we're not just going to totally let this thing just fall off a cliff, right? While I then, again, come back to our dimmer switch analogy, while I crank up the dimmer switch on this other thing that we're going to prioritize for this chunk of time. So I do think that you can very successfully maintain fitness qualities while you develop others. And that's how we get into this, again, stair-step function of people making pretty much nonstop progress over time, because we never let anything completely fall off. And so it's like we build and then we maintain, and then we build this other thing and we maintain, and we build and we maintain, and it just gradually builds for you over time. Does that adequately answer your question, Lance?
That's pretty good. I'm going to keep going though, as long as we have time.
Yeah.
So I like everything that you're saying. I think speed and power is an easy example because you don't need many touches to maintain speed and power. Another specific example I wanted to ask you guys to specifically explain, because in my experience, it's just like, it's a lot of pinballing. I think you can maintain residuals, absolutely. And I think your point about maintenance is very salient. Like, that is one of the most important things you need to understand, is it's far easier to, maintain your body weight than it is to put on mass, right? As an example. Another specific example that is maybe a little more complicated than the speed and power one is how, and James, I'm going to, I guess, pick on you because you had brought up these seasons in particular, but how, when you get to something like an absolute strength or a high relative strength kind of training block, how do you maintain work capacity?
Yeah, so this is where it gets into basically my daily and weekly training design. So the daily training template I use and then the weekly design I use lends itself to me being able to never totally let go of any one quality, but then makes it easy for me to prioritize certain qualities at different points throughout the year, right? So let me give you just an example with regards to how I lay out a training day, right? So you're going to know this because it comes straight from kind of like what we've done for a very long time.
Yeah.
We have a warm-up, then we have a block that I'm going to focus or develop or do something related to power to start the day. It's a jump, it's a sprint, it's a throw. From the power block, we go into your main lift for the day. It's going to be big. It's going to probably be bilateral. It's going to be a squat. It's going to be a bench. It's going to be a deadlift, something along those lines. Then we'll probably go to like a main accessory of some kind. And then we go into accessory movements and then probably wrap with like some type of core stability, arms, whatever it's going to be. Right? But then if we zoom out and think about a training week, I'm going to be lifting on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I have low conditioning days on Tuesdays and Thursdays that are just perpetually maintaining my like aerobic capacity. And then Saturday is a variable hybrid day that I can use however I want. That could become a track and field day. It could become a fourth lift day. It could be a day where I do Metcons. It could be a day where I'm on the track doing more aerobic power activity. And so by laying out and designing training in this way, it gives me the ability to always be touching different qualities and then to easily be able to dimmer switch certain aspects up or down depending on what I'm focusing on. So like if I'm in a period of time where I'm really focusing on relative strength development, for example. Great. Well, my main lift sections of my lift days are going to look something maybe like an EDM protocol, which is probably my personal favorite, right? An example would be, hey, work up to a top set of 6 today. We're going to hit 2 to 4 back off sets of 6 at 15% less than your top set today, right? And you can kind of wave that. You can do like a period of time doing that with 8 reps, a period of time doing it with 6 reps, and a period of time doing it with 4 reps. That exact protocol has gotten people to hit 100+ pound deadlift PRs in exactly 12 weeks. So I know it works, right? That's developing that more pure strength component. Okay. But then I have my Tuesdays, which are going to be aerobic tempo runs. And I have my Thursdays, which are going to be aerobic tempos or cardiac output, maintaining my aerobic capacity. And the nice part about the aerobic system is that it's the most adaptable and it lasts the longest and needs the least amount of input to maintain. So my Tuesdays and Thursdays hold on to that quality for me, right? The hardest quality to hold on to in that realm would potentially be more of like an aerobic power type thing. But again, I can use my Saturday to then approach the aerobic power if I so choose to do it that way, if I don't want to use it for a 4th lift day. But that's like how I chunk down a training week and how I chunk down my training days. And it just, at least conceptually for me, over time has always really worked and made it easy for me just to kind of like Lego block different pieces in and out and then to dimmer switch them up or down. And I can always easily prioritize and maintain kind of everything as I go.
I like that a lot. And I know we've been around each other a lot over the last, 15 years or something. So I can't say that I was unbiased by being around you, but that's actually what I have started to do and like the most is, whatever our primary thing is, we're mostly going to hit that Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Saturday is going to be totally different, often nauseating, but whatever the medicine that you need to get yourself better. And you can sprinkle in whatever else you need during those Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. And of course, Tuesday, Thursday, great cardiac output days.
I mean, that's the thing. If people, boom. Where's my clap? Hold on. Give me a second. Where did it go? Crap. I lost it. I don't know where it is.
That's the problem of digital sound effects.
I don't know where it is. Oh, here it is. Hold on.
You need the board. Yes.
We need like the producer in the background, like ready to go with that stuff.
Oh yeah, totally. Skyline, where are you at?
Yeah. But no, I mean, like, to be honest, like, that's why I have been preaching this 3-3 split.
Yeah.
To anyone that will listen to me for years now. For anybody that wants this very nice, well-rounded, athletic approach, I just still to this day have not found anything better.
Yeah.
I just haven't. And I have tried a lot of stuff. A lot of stupid stuff, too. And it just works. And it works on repeat, and it's worked for hundreds and, if not thousands of people at this point. For exact reasons that we're talking about right now. So yeah, that's how I personally like to do it. But those are really good questions, Lance. Thanks for the follow up. Yeah.
Make sure we got into the details. Can I ask one more question?
I love when you ask questions because it means I don't have to ask questions.
I have to come up with ideas. I feel ya. This is totally kind of out of left field, but I was just curious because of what you just said. I want to know what's the stupidest training program you've ever written, maybe for yourself, and I will start. When I wanted strength, I thought it'd be cool to do the Olympic lifts and the power lifts as my primary and my accessory exercises, and I wave loaded them all 3-2-1 3-2-1. I was so exhausted at some point I caught myself in the chin with a snatch. And I didn't get any stronger, even though 3s, 2s, and 1s are in the strength realm. How cool is that? Don't ever do that, folks.
Oh man, the stupidest training I've ever done. Oh boy. My hesitation is because I feel like there's a lot to choose from.
Yeah.
Like, I can think back to college, and just the amount of total work that I was doing was insane.
Yeah,
it's like
couldn't recover.
Oh my god! I mean, I still did semi-recover because I was 19, 20 years old.
Yeah.
But I was essentially, when I was on my own and super stubborn and not following the training program that our strength conditioning coach from college gave us in the off season, and I would just do my own stuff because I was just really into it. At that point in time, I was super into Louis Simmons. I was super into West Side. I was like, this is the way. This is how it's done. Like, look at this guy with this awesome tattoo. We're going to do West Side because this is the way to become a better athlete. Mind you, I could literally not wipe my ass at that time because I couldn't get my hand I couldn't rotate or reach my hand around my back to be able to wipe my ass.
Yeah.
But that didn't matter.
Did you get a scratching pole instead?
Because that didn't matter because Louis said that, you just got to put a lot of weight in a bar and it's going to sink you right into that squat. So I always felt good about that. But I was running
and James had a bidet ever since.
Yeah. So I was running West Side, just straight West Side as I understood it, right? Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. Take your pick of how you want to lay out the 4 days, right? I had my max effort days. I had my dynamic effort days. And then what I chose to do on the days that I wasn't lifting was to go out to the field and do high volume, max effort, sprint, agility, and change of direction work. So it's pretty much Monday was going to be like a max effort bench press upper body day. Tuesday was max effort sprints, agility, and change of direction. Wednesday was like a dynamic lower body day. Thursday was, I think, whatever it was, like a dynamic upper body day, or like, I can't remember the exact order of how it went.
This is exhausting.
And then Friday I would go back out and do another round of like max effort sprint, agility, and change of direction. And then I have like a max effort lower body day.
You must have been the most jacked and fastest kid in the world back then.
I could handle a lot of workload though.
I bet, because everything was just, you had passive restraints everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Stiffness lifting all that weight.
So much stiffness. Like I got faster. Like I ran that was when I ran a 6'6", had a 33-inch vertical. Like I was pretty strong, but like I couldn't rotate worth
fast twitch, dude.
Couldn't rotate worth anything.
That is funny because I have a similar story in that I was doing powerlifting training and I was like, sprints are supposed to be good for you. Maybe let's try this on the weekend. And I was like, man, my hip is killing me. Why does that hurt so bad? And I told my old program writer, Mike Robertson, and he said, you did what? Don't sprint. You should not sprint on the weekend. And I was like, I didn't quite get it at that point because I was still young, and I was like, oh my god, this is terrible now that I look back on it.
All right, Kieran, what do you got, dude?
Give it to us.
I feel like it was just probably like a lot of people, and trying to, like, everything we're talking about, I want to be fast, I want to be jacked, I want to be strong. So like, just like, I was like, I'll just do those three things every training day. And I just was like weak. I was like, I'm not jumping as high. I'm always tired. It was a shit show. And I think, I carried that for a long time. And I think that's why Rebel was a blessing back in the day. James was like, we're not going to do all those at the same time. We're going to, yeah, exactly. It was probably like, you fucking idiot. What are you doing? No, but, it definitely helped to, kind of organize it a little differently. So kind of lends right in nicely with this whole topic.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. Yeah, you're totally right.
Oh, I forgot. I also did sled drags.
In the same program?
Yeah, in that same program.
I was like, sled drags aren't stupid.
I also did.
Now
that's what I would do on the days I went out for like my sprint and agility and change of direction. I would do the full volume of sled drags that Louis recommended first, and then I would do all of my sprint work and stuff.
All right.
And I probably didn't even eat that much food. I was probably under eating by like 1,000 calories. It's a shocker that I had 2 stress fractures in my back in college. Like, who'd have thunk it?
Just for anybody zooming into this portion of the podcast, we're talking about things you should not do.
Yes, yeah, to be clear.
Yeah, to be clear, the last 8 minutes has been a laundry list of things that you should never, ever, ever do.
I'm sorry to derail us. I needed to hear those stories, and we need to remember to ask the Ryans what theirs are.
I can't wait, because I can guarantee you both of them. I guarantee you both LaCure and Patrick have some phenomenal, idiotic phases of training in their life.
Oh, God, yeah.
We need to get sorry, I totally butchered the last name.
Yeah,
we need to get LaCure on here again at some point in time to tell the story of when he loves to talk about how when his back was really messed up, he went to this powerlifting thing that Greg Robbins put on, and LaCure was like, he must have thought I was the weirdest dude ever, because I literally just like followed him around and asked him like all these questions about like how to make my back not hurt. But Greg is such a nice guy. So anyways, let's wrap this here. I feel like we've gone off the cuff here. Hopefully this was useful for people. I think it is. We talked about sequencing training. We talked about the seasons of training. We talked about the importance of periodization and why you need to sequence training, the law of diminishing returns, and we've laid out exactly what not to do for the last 10 minutes. So that in itself is beneficial. Yes. Anyways, folks, thanks for tuning in. I hope you had a laugh or two. And let me see if I can. I'm gonna see if I can transition us to a close.
That's fire.
All right, here's what we're gonna do: 3, 2, 1. Bye, everybody.
Later.